Hi weaving friends, I'm here today to chat with you about what my latest project has taught me. This video is brought to you by the online weaving school where you will find many lessons for all kinds of weavers, all different levels. You will just have to go over and check it out because there is too much for me to tell you. If you haven't already, I would love for you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share any of my videos with your friends that you think they will enjoy. Friends, if you would prefer to read this post in a text format, I have a blog post for you that you can access by clicking the link down below. Without further ado, let's get on with the video. I started my latest project full of enthusiasm and confidence. I often feel at the beginning that whatever I'm working on is going to be my best piece yet. This is an important motivating tool for me, and I'm sure that many of the projects I've undertaken would not have come to life without this initial confidence. You could say that I felt super confident going into this project. I have experience with the weave structure, I have experience with the yarns that I was using, and I've got plenty of experience with my loom. I also thought that I was cool with warping a long and wide warp, and this was my first mistake. I should have asked someone to hold the warp for me so that I could focus on winding it on. But no, being the independent to my own detriment kind of person that I am, I forged ahead alone. Let me share some details about this project while you watch me weave it, because I know you'll be interested to know. Those of you who have been around here for a while will be familiar with my bordering on obsessive desire to weave a full-sized overshot coverlet, heavily influenced by the early American woven coverlets. My main stumbling point to weaving my own coverlet is the seaming. Traditional coverlets were woven in panels, usually 2 or 3, and then joined because the looms were not big enough to weave a full-size coverlet for, say, a double bed or even a single bed. And that certainly is true for my loom too, which is a 90 centimetre width, my Louet David, which is around 35 inches. If you want to know more about this loom, I'm going to link some resources for you down below. The threading for the panels has to be arranged to match up when the seams are joined. This usually consists of a centre panel and 2 border panels either side if you're weaving 3 panels. And then the seaming method has to be chosen with the view of minimising visibility. A really good coverlet weaver will have almost invisible seams, and this is obviously something that is very desirable. Another essential aspect of successfully seaming the panels is to ensure a very consistent beat so that the pattern woven is continuous once the panels are joined. That means measuring picks per inch, something I'm not particularly fond of doing, and also maintaining the beat for the entire piece. So if you're weaving 3 panels, you've got to try and have the same consistent beat for those 3 panels. So my idea was to weave just 1 panel and to practice rearranging the threading and weaving a pleasing pattern. I even had the thought initially that I could use the panel to cut into pieces and make a patchwork quilt, which is another one of my weaving goals and aims, is to make a beautiful patchwork quilt entirely of hand-woven fabrics. Now, I'm not sure that this particular pattern lends itself well to a quilt because the pattern is fairly large scale and very continuous. You can see the design really flows into itself. But I'm not too fussed about that. I'll decide what to do with the piece once it's off the loom. For my warp, I chose 8/2 cotton in white. I have a lot of experience with this yarn and I've used it extensively in other overshot projects. Normally I pair it with a fingering weight wool for the pattern weft, but this time I decided to try an Australian 3-ply wool, which is between a lace and a fingering weight, I would say. In retrospect, I would have been better to set the whole piece a little bit closer. I set it at 20 ends per inch, and there's just a bit more space between the pattern wefts than I would like. So I think I would have been better with probably 24 to 25 ends per inch. I found the weaving draft in Carol Strickler's book, American Woven Coverlets, and I made some adjustments to the draft with plenty of calculations. Yet when it came to the threading, I found that my warp was 16 threads short. I'm still not really sure how that happened because I was pretty particular about my mathematical equations, but anyway, that happened. So what I did to counteract that was I measured out the extra threads and I weighted them over the back of the loom. After threading and slaying the 650 ends, I was looking forward to finally weaving, but my less than ideally tensioned warp came back to bite me at this point. I had to take the initial weaving very slowly to avoid the floats and boat shuttle warp dives. Now, if you've ever experienced boat shuttle warp dives, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like some areas of the warp are tensioned more highly than other areas, and so in the lower tension areas, the boat shuttle, instead of shooting across like you can see in the video here, it tends to want to dive down to the bottom of the loom, and I've got chips on my boat shuttles to prove that this has happened to me many times. So initially I felt quite angry about all this because the project was meant to be a happy and relaxing experience. It was supposed to help me progress in my coverlet ambitions. As I sat there weaving today, I started to think. The anger had subsided to disappointment, and that put me in a reflective mood. There are so many life lessons in weaving. Challenges, frustrations, they're all part of the process. I wanted to share with you today some of my reflections from working on this particular piece. Lesson 1, things don't always go according to plan, and that's okay. I once heard someone say, you expected ABC and you got XYZ. I expected this to be a fun, rewarding project, but it was harder than I thought. It's my reaction to the unfulfilled expectations that matters. The problem is not the problem is how I deal with the problem. You've probably heard me say before that there is no perfection in this world. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive for high standards and excellence. It just means that we should have more hope than we do expectation. Lesson 2, accepting responsibility. My first reaction was to lay blame elsewhere or to make excuses. I was tired, I was rushed, I didn't want to bother one of my family members to help me hold the warp. I thought I'd be fine to do it myself. While there may be some truth to some of these elements, ultimately it's my project and my decision making led to a warp that wasn't adequately tensioned and is now causing me more difficulties in the weaving process. I have to accept that responsibility and work to overcome and undo the problems that I made. Lesson 3, patience and persistence pay off. I could have given up on this warp, but aside from not wanting to waste all that beautiful cotton that I'd paid for, I also didn't want to let the project defeat me. I know from past experience that if I give up on a project, I will feel far worse than if I decide to battle through it. I guess I have a bit of a stubborn streak, but in weaving that works for rather than against me, because it forces me to do uncomfortable things that make me angry and frustrated. If I stop at the angry stage to give up, then I'm suspended in that anger and negativity. If I keep going, I'm forced to work through the frustration and come out the other side much happier and with a sense of satisfaction that even though it was hard, I did it. Beautiful things are such a treasure that they should take time, and they shouldn't necessarily be easy to achieve. They are worth the time and the effort. Lesson 4, learning is a journey. Learning to weave is a journey of stepping stones, walking, then running, but never stopping and sitting down. The journey is ever changing and building. Just as life is a constant striving to be better, that doesn't finish. You don't just wake up one day and say, now I'm the person that I should be. You wake up and you prepare to work and you practice all the good things you know will make you that better person. And you repeat that each and every day, building, changing, adapting. There may be a tendency in weaving to feel like you should know more by now. You should be producing perfect pieces by now. Instead, try to recognize and enjoy the journey and keep building every day. I've talked about my slow learning weaving journey before, and I'm going to link to that video down below because I know that that video resonated with a lot of people, and if you haven't seen it yet, it's a must watch. Lesson 5, adversity is good for us. This is one of those hard life lessons, and not one that everyone will agree with me on. But if we spend our whole lives being pampered, having it easy and getting what we want when we want it, we become soft and spoiled. Difficulties help us to build character. They allow us to develop empathy. They make us strong. We don't like hardship because it doesn't feel good, but that doesn't mean that it isn't good for us. This challenging project has certainly been good for me. Of course, it didn't feel like that in the beginning. Right now, I'm at a better place with it, slowly weaving, slower than I would like, but that's all part of it, and making adjustments as I go. I feel at peace with my progress. I've gained confidence that I can deal with pretty much anything my loom throws at me. I would still rather that this was an easy and enjoyable project that I originally envisioned, but I've shifted to a place of gratitude. I'm grateful that I have a loom and I can use it. I have supplies to weave with. I can figure out how to fix things when I need to. I have the time to devote to this wonderful craft. Most of the time, I end up with a beautiful piece of weaving. And lastly, that I learn so much more from weaving than just how to weave. Okay friends, now it's over to you. What life lessons have you learned from weaving? Please share your thoughts in the comments below so that we can keep this conversation going. I love to read your positive comments, and I love that we can be a community that shares and helps one another. Until next time, happy weaving.